Item number B was a few months later in May of 1982 when my father, who had been in the business since the 1950s, wanted to sell fiberglass vaults and actually had done that. Well, they objected to that because they were selling their own cement liners. And we were able to acquire the minutes here, and it says, Murphy, the undertaker in town, this is the part that I have highlighted here, came to the meeting uninvited, as scheduled. He is permitted to state his anxiety about the cemetery, questioning the durability and reliability of some fiberglass liners that have proven unreliable. Number C, in June of 1982, they decided that no funeral directors or person with vested interest in monuments ever be a member of the board. And they wanted to say that they passed a thing that said no fiberglass liners would be allowed to be used, which frankly in the industry, and I've been in this most of my life, would be restraint of trade. But my father decided not to pursue that because we wanted to get along with the community and the Catholic Church. On D, as you can see, the part that's highlighted, as it says here, this is very interesting. Because of this troublemaker, Fred Davella has been empowered to act as the head of the Trinidad Catholic Cemetery as of June 21st, 1982, so there will be continuity of leadership in dealing with our attorney and any further problems the Murphys want to develop. The gentleman is, to this day, is still the president of the board. E, we're going to jump ahead from 1982 to 1998. Now this is where it gets interesting. This cemetery was incorporated in 1911. It was turned over by the church to the board of directors. They were a Jesuit community, and at this time the Jesuits were starting to pull out of southern Colorado. And Father Horman, who I knew personally, was leaving and going back to St. Louis. And as you as board members would know, he says in here, if a priest cannot be at the board meeting, send me the minutes, I'll sign off on them. It's not the way to do it. So there were no board meetings now from 1998 until 2002. So the priests in town had no idea that they were supposed to be a part of this board. So as you can read in here, and anybody that's ever written minutes or knows the legalese of this, that this probably should not have been done. And there's a name on here, again, that was back with the A that was signed on this, Mr. Davella. He signed back in 1982 when the priest said there shall always be a priest on the board. There's no meetings from 1998 until 2002, and the first thing that the new board members do, Mr. Davella, they changed the bylaw so there's no priest on the board. They did, however, have Father Fisher on the board. He was a friend of mine. We climbed the Twin Peaks together back in the mid-'80s. He died in 1997. As you see on the next page, he's on their tax returns as a priest in 2002. I'm not sure how he did that.
Quite a feat.
Yes. On H, the next one is our local pastor, Father Becker, who is pastor for Lucille, who spoke first, knew and had been receiving complaints about the cemetery when he was a pastor in Pueblo, about the Trinidad Catholic Cemetery. When he got down there, he wrote him this letter asking to be a part of the board. And we were pursuing litigation at that time, and we had to sign an affidavit listing all the priests in town because it had to be a priest all of Los Angeles County. All the priests said, we don't want to be a part of it. It was Father Becker. Now, I want you to take a little bit of time and read the handwritten Trinidad Catholic Cemetery one there that's highlighted. Let me know when everybody's done. I'm Tom Murphy. I don't have any spies. The yellow part that we have here is the priest in early 2002. This is 2003. I didn't want to overload you with too much information. This is the church bulletin saying, we have no idea what our association is, because they weren't told. In '98, when Father Horman left, he said if a priest can't be there, send them to me. He died shortly after that. He was not in good health, and it was no way to perpetuate a board. The next page, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, I think too much coffee. What happened when I finally said enough is enough was in 2003. Now you can see how they've thought about us, troublemaker from 1982 labeled, all the way to the spies. Well, they'd mistreated me and the families that had been out there for years, and my father said, be careful because they can hurt our business. You don't want to make them angry. Well, we tolerated it for a long time, and what finally pushed me over the edge was I had an honor guard that had shown up to do a service, and they came to me and they said, what's going on out there? We were mistreated. At that time I said, enough is enough. I tried to find out who the board members were, and like with Lucille's situation, I wasn't even sure exactly who was on the board. They didn't do anything about it. This next one is from somebody that lives up here in Arvada, and this is just a sampling, and her letter I think is very clear on the problems that have been going on essentially since the priest left. Just talking about the condition and the way they were treated. And then the last one is from Rick Kern, who's the manager up at Horan McConaughey here, who said the same thing. He tried to come down there and sell a vault and had problems. Let me back up a little bit now to 2003. I moved forward. I hired a lawyer from Wassenberg, and I was able to obtain some of the documents, articles of incorporation, the bylaws. I was able to obtain some of the financial documents, and I moved as far as I could. I'm a small businessman. I didn't have deep pockets. And the letters that I had, we got to a point where the next thing we needed to do is file suit. I didn't have the money to pursue it, so I let it go. But the complaints continued with the church, they continued in town. So in 2007, I formed a committee of people, former mayor and other outstanding citizens, and we tried to deal with them at that time. They wouldn't even meet with them as a group, they met with one person. Well, some things happened with the committee. I decided, you know, I didn't want to move forward with them. Didn't know what to do. I met a gentleman, Rich Mail, who is lives here in Colorado, is an expert on nonprofits, and he said, well, why don't you take it to the Attorney General? So in October of 2009, I came up and I met with Jeff Blue and Jan Michael, I can never say his last name, Zavis. One of those government guys. One of those government guys. I presented in an hour's time on a Friday afternoon, three-ring binder, 3 inches thick, with all the documents and all the complaints and everything that I had to them, and said, we need to do something about this. And they told me at that time, well, you know, they do have oversight of all nonprofits. It's like, that's great. I left here thinking it's going to be resolved. It took them a year to come down. And the only reason I knew that was Wes was in town campaigning, and they had rented a room down at the Chamber of Commerce, and he told me, yeah, I saw him down here. So I had called them a number of times saying, what's going on? And they said, well, we have a big case. We're going to sign a lawyer, and when that big case is over with, then we'll get to it. That happened twice. Well, we finally did get a lawyer assigned. And after they obtained the documents in October of 2010, nothing happened. One gentleman who was on the board who disagreed with the direction that this was going, he and I were working to resolve this, and we tried for years to do this through an attorney and through the priest to mediate this and do it as Christians and say, hey, listen to what we have to say. Because what's happened is these guys got a hold of it and decided it's theirs. So we filed suit because we didn't think the Attorney General was coming. Finally, in August of this year, we got an assurance of discontinuance and voluntary compliance that we were supposed to agree to at the end of December. Well, it had gotten to the point where it had gotten so watered down, essentially what we were going to do is return it to the people that had control of it. And the gentleman, Mr. DeBono, who is a board member, and myself, were stuck with the legal bill. And in our lawsuit, if we had given this up, then we would have had no recourse. So we had no recourse, and we're the ones who brought this to the Attorney General, and they were going to solve it, but they told us that's not our problem. Too bad. Well, there's a doctrine out there, the Common Fund Doctrine, and it's the only thing I left at home. It's on my desk. I didn't have enough, I run out of ink making all these copies, and at 4 o'clock this morning I left it there. But you should look it up. When somebody, it's like a whistleblower thing. When somebody shows up and says, this is wrong, you know, and the people that blow the whistle end up having to pay the bill, that's wrong. But here's what else has happened. We found out there was a woman, Rose Borders from Pueblo, who buried her daughter in 2001. 2 weeks later, they moved the body because they had sold the wrong space. They didn't tell her, they didn't ask her. They thought she was from California. She was from Pueblo. She showed up 2 months later and said, where's my daughter? Their eyes got big. I have a copy of the paper here.